All right, today's an amazing day. We're at Haute Residence headquarters, and we're doing another chat with top real estate agents. And today's great as we are actually speaking with our member in the Caribbean, St. Croix, our first interview with a member in the Caribbean, and it's Amy Land de Wilde. Is that how I pronounce it, Amy?
May I correct that?
Yeah, no, that's, yes, please.
Amy Land de Wilde.
Oh, Amy Land Wilde. Perfect.
Okay. Amy, how's that?
I love your background. It basically tells me you're completely in the Caribbean. How is your day going today?
Excellent. My outside looks like this, just a little less fanciful maybe, but this pretty much all of this blue is going on out there too.
Amazing. So before I get into it, I want to do a quick bio, if you don't mind. Over 40 years ago, Amy came to St. Croix on a diving vacation after a year abroad. She fell in love with the colorful diving, the beautiful topography, the welcoming people, and the island lifestyle. And right then and there, decided to make it her home. In 1986, yes, 1986, Amy became a licensed broker in St. Croix and has never looked back. She opened her own brokerage in 2001, which she recently sold to the Schmidt family of companies, Coldwell Banker's largest affiliate operation, and happily remains a broker there, leading the top producing team. Amy, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Seth. Happy
So
to be doing this.
You went to St. Croix 40 years ago to diving. If you don't mind me asking, where did you grow up? Where were you from? Tell me a little about yourself of who you were when you went diving before.
Okay, sure. Actually, I just celebrated my 42nd islandversary here a couple months ago. So I've been here 40.
Anniversary.
Thank you. I've been here 42 years, and I'm from New York City. And then I went to Chicago. I went to Northwestern and moved to LA after that. So I've sort of hit all the big, hit a lot.
You hit every big city.
I hit a lot of major cities, and I was really young when I got invited with friends to take a trip abroad, which I did, and I spent. That was, quite a long time ago, and went to. All through Europe and then also Southeast Asia, which just totally captivated me. I started diving there in Sri Lanka and Phuket when there was just nothing there. And so when I got back to the States, I had an opportunity through an invitation to come to St. Croix to dive here. And we have, world famous diving here as well. So I was a freelance. I was one of the first virtual workers. I was a freelance book editor for Prentice Hall at the time.
So you were like part of the gig economy before there was a gig economy.
I was part of the gig economy in the 70s.
Yes.
And but I did not love doing that. So when I got here and just started diving, and it was gorgeous. The island was gorgeous, and the things that got me that you read about, that's still true. So I ended up getting a job here, working for a radio station, which I literally started managing in my 20s. And that was just a completely different.
What type of music were you guys playing, if you don't mind me asking?
Classic rock.
Or what was it?
So there was some reggae, but it was classic rock. And I honestly lived through 4 ownership changes of this radio station between 1979 and 1986 and, 85. And it was, dealing with evaporating air, basically what you're doing, selling radio time. So I was running that station, but in 86, our island, first of all, was a very robust economy all through the States at that moment. And our island had just seen a big real estate sale around a Robert Trent Jones design golf course, beautiful, green pastoral area around there. And it had all been rezoned for development. So at that point, I was trying to decide. I really didn't want to own any radio stations. I didn't want to do that. And I was trying to decide between real estate or securities, because both of those markets were really robust in '86. And
When you say securities, like selling stocks?
exactly, like being a stockbroker or something.
Can I rewind? When you went to Northwestern, what did you study? What did you want to get into?
So what I started in drama. So I went to their drama school. They have a really good drama school. And truly within my first quarter there, those people are, I don't even know how I got into their drama school. Those people are so awesome. And I thought, I am not going to make $1 or be famous, compared to what I'm seeing here.
So you were humble.
No.
You came in there and you saw your competition and you said, this probably is not the right.
Really, the people who get there, I would never be able to get in there now, but then it was just, they were still just so much talent there. Anyway, so I just went to the liberal arts school. And it's funny because I have a daughter and she studied biology and is now getting her master's in epidemiology and public health, and which I'm thrilled about. But at that time, I'm sure to my parents' horror, I studied psychology and English. And it's funny because you think, like, what are you going to do with that? I liked both of those things, but what are you going to do? But weirdly, those are two excellent, knowing how to read, write, communicate, and deal with people, or, some real basic and very important skills that you need in a field like real estate. So I feel it served me well, even though it was a total accident.
Interesting. And so I assume you were a diver because you went and dove in Sri Lanka, and then that brought you to the Caribbean. You came there. Did you ever go to any other countries in the Caribbean, or was it just St. Croix?
This is I landed here because I had a friend, who invited me. And so this is where I, sunk my roots. By this time I've been to most of the islands in the Caribbean. And I see when I go there, I always try to filter, when I visit these other islands, rather than somebody who has settled and loved my own Caribbean island. I try to look at through the eyes if I were coming, to a new island from like the Midwest or somewhere where there isn't beautiful water, the kind of water we have here. And I can still, I still am so glad for my choice. Knowing what I know now, I wouldn't move to another island, although they're all beautiful.
So you moved to the island, you were at the radio station for about 8 years, you said. Then
5 years, maybe. Yeah.
5 years. And then you looked and said, hey, I either want to become in the financial industry or the real estate industry.
Exactly.
So tell us about that.
So I had a lot of good, managing a radio station and starting in radio sales is very good if practice for any kind of sales job. First of all, you're dealing with an evaporating commodity, so you're being sort of trained in you can see a house, but it's a whole conceptual, it's a more conceptual thing. Plus you have to have excellent, it's not only people skills, but you have to be so organized and follow up and have develop really good work habits. So I really do credit that beginning. One of the reasons that I got, because I really kind of hit the ground running, luckily starting in '86, because the market at that point was just, it had been sleepy, and then all of a sudden it was crazy. And I got to start at that time, which, a lot of people who start in the industry don't. They have a very long, quiet time while they're developing their business. And
did you have like a mentor, or did you have someone that, helped you? Because obviously for you to get into it and start running, tell us a little about the company or the decision you made.
So I actually, other people might have had this experience, but I was not definitely unknown here, but I was unknown in real estate. I had no experience. I was starting at a very busy time. I went first to the busiest, largest, oldest company, and told them I wanted to work there. And they had a very professional, experienced broker who told me very clearly that she did not need to hire anyone inexperienced. So I went to this other company that had been around. It was a much smaller company, been around a longer time, and they gave me my start. And it was a wonderful thing because they're no longer in business, but because the principals, except for one of them, actually have sadly died. But they did mentor me. I learned how to use it. I started with another broker, the owner's son, who had just come back from California, and so he was on the vanguard of knowing how to use a computer. So
He was like the hot shot of the office.
He was like, in early Silicon Valley. So he taught me how to use a computer in 1986. So
very cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I started then, and they did mentor me. They were wonderful teachers, and again, being successful in real estate, there are all sorts of personalities, I believe, that can be successful in real estate. You can be an introvert and want to do interviews, and you can be quiet, but the things you have to have follow-up, and you have to listen, and and they were really they were just wonderful mentors, teaching me more about the business itself.
But let's rewind, because I think that's an important thing. I mean, obviously, you're an all-star. You're 40 years in this business, or actually 35. I'm sorry.
Don't make me older than I am. Thank you.
No. When I meant 40 years, you've been in St. Croix, but here you are. You want to get into real estate. You go to the big company, and they don't want to hire you because you don't have experience. Most people would quit or be negative and say, "Oh, I can't do it. It's not worth it." What advice do you give to somebody in your shoes? It might be in like a big city like in New York or Beverly Hills, and they go to a Coldwell banker office in Beverly Hills, and obviously they're like, well, you're not experienced, we're not going to hire you. What type of advice would you give to somebody in your shoes in today's market?
So I want to also sort of delineate between being in a large market, say, as you said, like Beverly Hills or New York, as being completely different from being in a small market like ours. So, in a small market, probably in most places in the US, and probably we are not unusual in this way. There's mentoring, but it's hard to be trained because some of these companies are small. They can't have so many layers of stratification where you have then agents and managing, brokers who don't sell, then owners and that doesn't exist. You sort of have to learn by osmosis. In a larger city, what I would totally recommend, first of all, I would bring what are your skills? So maybe knowing how to sell real estate, to me, is the smallest part of being successful in real estate. Anybody can learn an industry. What you have to do is come with, a definitely drive and a desire to succeed, and you have to be organized, and you have to spend time. And when I started in the business, it was not unusual as a new person, and let alone one of the experienced people who had so much business, to be working, 60 to 80 hours a week. I mean, and you were, going to sites, using a camera, developing the photos, sending them away. Like everything took much longer than the instantaneous stuff we have now. And it took more time to develop a buyer that way as well, especially living down here. So
yeah, I mean, also you don't have DocuSign, you don't have all these things that, so
we had nothing, but I would recommend for people who want to get in the business but don't have real estate experience, what are your skills? First of all, I have to say, make sure that you're I got, I know this is fast forward, but when I started the, company in Coldwell Banker, but I got so many emails and resumes from people that had misprints and, that were sloppy and sort of impenetrable in terms of what the message was. You want to make sure that your first face forward to those people is excellent. And you want to follow up with them and you want to thank them for, spending time with you. And a lot of that stuff I think is lost now. I got very few thank you for taking your time, and that stuff stands out. And that has nothing to do with selling real estate. I think it's more and more important, especially in a large market, but wherever you can do it, is definitely to find a mentor. Try to attach yourself to a successful team. I think that didn't exist so much when I got into the business. There were no teams of people doing anything. Everybody was doing their own thing.
And so like you said, you started, and when you started, things were kind of hot. How long were they hot for? How long did it take you to get your first deal?
I actually, that didn't take very long. So those stories where people say, it was 6 months and, I sludged around, but no, I mean, my story is unusual in that way because of the lucky, what was happening in our market at the time. And I probably had my first deal within a month. Truly. Oh, wow. And I actually, my first year was good. I had a good first year. People always tell you, and it's true, that you have to be able to, have the cash to support yourself for that period of time, also to spend money on yourself. And, I started doing a newsletter in 1986, which I still do today. So, that consistency is part of, but that part didn't take that long, but there have been many times in the intervening years that, the
ups and downs. Well, tell us about when you experienced your first downturn, how it was in the mindset, because obviously, in your business, not like you get a guaranteed check every week. So when it's good, it rains, and when it doesn't rain, it's not, it's not good. So tell us a little about the first time you went through a little bit of a slump.
So our slump was externally created. We had a hurricane. And so first of all, in 87, remember there was just a big market crash. Yes. And so I got in the business in September 86, and in 87, there was a big market crash. But weirdly, at that time, we still had a huge lag, 6 months to a year with what was happening with you guys in the States, and then how we would experience down here. Don't forget, there was no internet then, and it just was,
so the negativity didn't travel as quick as it does today.
It didn't, and people didn't have access to the information about us, and so it was not, and for whatever reason, I mean, obviously people lost, there were trillions of dollars lost in the stock market and the economy, but somehow that hadn't yet made its way. I recently just, I mean, we still did okay until then. We had a bad hurricane in 89. And although our market had really started to slow at that point, September 89 was, that was the sort of swan song of our market. Until, strangely, there was all of this insurance money here and FEMA money. So all of a sudden, I can't remember what that number was, but it was big for us. And
people just started building everywhere.
So what would happen is that people started selling their ruined homes in one location that wasn't as nice as the location that they wanted to move to. Better view, higher elevation, maybe on the water, like that. So, and because of this money having flooded in, our market remained really pretty good until about, I would say 91, 90, something like that. So, and then it totally crashed, because remember there was the Gulf War, terrible recession, really high interest rates, so.
I assume your market is like when things are good, people are buying, vacation homes, and when they're not good, they want to sell the vacation homes, correct?
Right, and now especially, we are very sensitive to whatever you guys are doing up there. If you feel optimistic and wealthy, we benefit.
So tell us a little about, because obviously you built an amazing company. You worked very, very hard. You opened it in 2001, and you recently, how long ago did you sell it to Coldwell, or to the Schmidt family companies? That's an affiliate of Coldwell Banker. That must have been an exciting time to build a company, but kind of hard to sell it too. Tell us a little about the reasoning of selling it, and when did you make that sale?
So you're right. I started the company in 2001.
And what was it called?
At that time, it was just Land to Wilde Realty.
Okay.
There were no, there might have been a Remax here at that time, but branding wasn't a thing here yet.
Yeah, it wasn't, I understand.
Yeah, so although Coldwell Banker had been talking to our company, which I finally did go to that larger company, by the way, in another couple of years. I ended up, so I stayed at that company until she closed it in 01. I mean, it was a crazy story. We all came into our Tuesday morning sales meeting, and she announced before 9/11, before the moment we call 9/11, that she was closing the company.
Oh, wow.
So we were all sort of just dumbstruck there. And then, of course, that was not an issue right then. So that's when I started my company. And then Coldwell Banker continued. They contacted me, which was awesome. And I was working with an assistant at that time. And because don't forget, when you join a franchise, you then start paying franchise fees and, all of that too. So I, sort of had to get a buy-in from, the woman working for me at the time. So anyway, we decided to do that. And that was just the best decision ever. So I'm very happy that because it was organization and it was, having to do, and it was just me and it was and her. We were the two working there at the time. That was the whole company. And so then, when I sold in 2018, I think there were about 35 people, which isn't huge for a company, of course, in the States or anything, but.
No, but that's still big. I know the Caribbean well. So you sold, which obviously probably was amazing success story for you. You built a business and sold.
Yeah, I was eager to do that. I'm going to say this specifically to people who want to get into the market and then think it's going to be really glamorous because they don't like giving away their money to the broker. Don't do it. Be a broker. Be your own broker in a business. So, and
good
because
point.
Also the skills that make somebody really good, maybe in sales, and then running a company, those are all different skill sets.
And then obviously the last year has been tough with COVID. How are things right now? Are people traveling again? How's St. Croix right now, the real estate market?
So it's so strange. I mean, you just never know what the consequences of different events are going to be. And of course, when COVID hit and the island shut down, I think it was March 13th or right around there in 2020. Everyone thought, oh my gosh, now what? And, and in fact, what was strange, I was talking to some of my other island, different island colleagues. I mean, it was actually illegal for them to do any business.
Oh, wow.
I had people talking on different islands, and I'm not going to say the island here, who are saying they were like bringing contracts into their shopping bags at supermarkets when they were allowed to go, and meeting notaries out in on strange places. We didn't have to do that. But of course, we, all our businesses shut down. Everybody had to stay inside. We couldn't, real estate, strangely, we were one of the businesses that were allowed to open because since we managed other people's properties here from afar,
Yeah.
but it was very strict. And of course, nobody could come. No Airbnb could book, nobody could visit, nothing, none of that was going on until May. But we strangely benefited. St. Croix really benefited from that shutdown because it was far stricter in the rest of the Caribbean. And so people were allowed to come see us to our island. Finally, there was just people wanted to get out of their homes.
Yeah, they wanted to get out of their homes.
Yeah, so we really benefited. A lot of people saw our island, came to visit and loved it, who would never have necessarily come because they would have gone to their other favorite place.
If you had to give one advice to somebody, because obviously, I mean, you've been in this business a long time, and being where you're at right now is an amazing success story. Coming in, to an area you didn't know anybody. It's not like your parents knew everybody and you had all these deals come, fall on your plate, which I think is some motivation in itself, that you were able to come to in a market and build your own business and be successful, build your own brokerage, sell to Coldwell banker and still be successful. What advice would you give to finish off to somebody that's watching this?
Say a new person who wants to,
or to anybody, even a person that is in the business for 6 years and isn't having some success, but not at that level. What advice would you give to somebody?
I would try to get some brutal honesty from people they respect around them. If they're not having the success that they feel they should be having, I first would definitely look within and say, am I doing my best? Am I spending the hours? It's just so many more hours than you think. It's not a 40-hour work week. I mean, the flexibility does offer us benefits, and now that you can do stuff from a boat if you want to, but it's not a 40-hour a week. When I hear about work-life balance now, and I'm sure this speaks to a lot of people from, I'm going to say, my generation. I just think, I have a sort of silent little eye roll because, to me, work-life balance is something that you sort of, you need to create that balance if you want to be successful in the confines of really giving your all to your business while you're developing
a very
it.
valid point that you brought up. And yes, to be successful, and if you want work balance where you could work and play a lot, it has to be work and devote a lot of your time, your energy into building your business.
And part of its attitude too, Seth, is that, when I hear people say, oh my gosh, I have my phone, I always have to have it with me or something. I was just talking to somebody about this. I feel lucky. First of all, I'm so thrilled that I now have this technology. So I've been in Southeast Asia with a phone and been able to conduct business while I go see Angkor Wat. Those things are not mutually exclusive. But feeling angry or, I think you have to have a proper attitude about your work, in order to be successful about it. And if you feel that, you cannot never be off, first of all, that's not true, but then you're going to have a problem spending the kind of quality hours developing your business. And so I would look within myself for what are my habits? And then I would look outside to people who really know you in the business and say, why aren't I doing as well as I feel I should be doing at this point, at 6 years, at 4 years, whatever.
Well, Amy, I think your story is motivating because what it tells you is you don't have to be born in a city to be successful. You don't have to have relationships or family relationships, and you could basically start from scratch with no experience, just through hard work and determination, and build a successful business. And you're living proof of doing that. And to be honest with you, that's very encouraging and also motivating to anyone listening to your story, but also for anyone looking for a broker in St. Croix. I mean, you're obviously an amazing choice, and you built an amazing business of success and integrity and honesty, and you're an amazing reflection of our membership and a great partner for St. Croix. So I really appreciate you taking the time to tell your story, as your story is very motivating.
I'd also, if somebody does hear this, who's thinking about entering the business and would like to call, I'm always happy to talk to people who want to enter the business. So.
And what's your number?
It's everywhere, believe me.
You better just Google her.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Well, Amy, I appreciate your time and your story. And if there's anything you need in Miami, please reach out. And if there's any suggestions, or I can meet you for a coffee, I'd love to say hi to you.
That would be nice to meet you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. Bye-bye.
Bye.